How we doing, Mets fans? Even though I likely know the answer to that, because if you've all been watching Mets baseball the past 2 weeks, let alone the past 2 months, we'll just say, you have not been overly satisfied as a fan. I myself, too, have been not only disheartened by the Mets losing 11 of their past 12 games, I vocalized plenty for you guys in this past night's post-game show that you can check out after watching this video, but I know the same way that you know that this Mets team needs to make some organizational changes, and fast. And it does appear that David Stearns is finally at least dipping his toes in the front of the Mets' top prospects, and not only having some considered for the major league level, but most notably here that we're going to break down, key top prospects finally being moved up to the Syracuse Mets, making that the final stop before they hit the major leagues. We're going to get into all the latest reporting that has to do with these top prospects, headlined by guys like Jonah Tong, Jett Williams, Carson Benj, or Ryan Clifford, and how this is now paving the way, inevitably, for guys like Sproat and Nolan Mlan to get the call for the Mets as soon as this week. So we have a lot of breakdown in this one, everybody. Hit that like and subscribe button on your way in, and let me know your initial reactions and thoughts in the comments down below as the Mets have their top prospects finally, long awaited, highly anticipated, getting promoted to the AAA level, as well as what will inevitably be at the major league level soon. But let's first get into this one by thanking our amazing sponsors that make this show happen. They're at Moomoo, the official trading platform of the New York Mets, as well as SeatGeek, that has you covered for all of your ticketing needs. And as I've been telling everybody as of late, guys, make sure you utilize our promo code for SeatGeek, but you don't need to use it for Mets tickets, all right? I don't want you guys to go out your way to spend your hard-earned dollars there just to see the Mets go out and lose 4-1 in their latest matchup against the Braves or whatever it's going to be. I obviously have hope and optimism that the Mets could find themselves getting out of the rut that they currently find themselves in, but it is not looking all that great right now. So you might as well use this discount for the NFL season with those tickets right around the corner, whether you want it for concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, you name it. SeatGeek has over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the #1 rated ticketing app in the game today for a reason. Why I love them so much and why I've been utilizing them well before they became a channel-wide sponsor here is because of their grading scale that you see right there from 1 to 10, red to green, meaning that if you try to purchase a ticket in the red range, more than 1 through 4, it ain't a good bang for your buck. You should probably get a different ticket there in the SeatGeek app. But if you go for 1 in the more 7 through 10 range and the green, it's a great bang for your buck, and you should probably go after and land those tickets while they still last. So whatever you need on the ticketing space, everybody, SeatGeek has you covered. Utilize our promo code WardyNYM, link down below. That way you too get 10% off your next ticket purchase. And let's get into right with this one, and let's get into this news that was initially broken by a prospects guru that many of you guys know on X, that being Mr. Daniel Wexler. Wexler Rules is his handle on X, and he always has the scoops ahead of the time when we look at in-house promotions regarding the Mets and their prospects. Specifically now, when we look at the top dogs, and like I said, Jonah Tong, Jett Williams, Carson Benj, or Ryan Clifford. Step right up and meet the Syracuse Mets, baby, because they are all officially called up to Syracuse, guys. What we have been longing and crying for in the case of Jonah Tong, deemed by many as the best pitching prospect in baseball right now, not just in AA, but in baseball. Finally, after what should have been at least a month, in my humble opinion, the opinions of many, moved up to the AAA level. We have the long belief saying, okay, maybe he's going to go from AA all the way to the bigs. That isn't happening, obviously, as Jonah Tong has officially been moved up there to the Syracuse level. And when we take a deeper dive into this one, everybody, as you guys can see along beside me, Jonah Tong, the first of many prospects that we're going to deep dive today. To say he's deserving is an understatement. Tong, in his latest outing, including the highlights that you guys see there, has been absolutely dominant. He had another beautiful outing that we saw against some top prospects, including George Lombard, among others there for the Yankees organization. But in total, in 102 innings thus far that we've seen for AA Binghamton this year, Jonah Tong only allowed 50 hits, 44 walks, an absurd 18 earned runs to a whopping 162 strikeouts. For those that are unaware, that's the most strikeouts among all eligible pitchers in all of the minor leagues in baseball, not just AA. And a gorgeous 1.59 ERA to cap off what was nothing short of an absolutely dominant tenure there with the Rummel Ponies. Tong, shout at him. He's a follower of mine on X as well. He seems like he's actually pretty tapped in with not only Mets content creators, podcasters, you name it. He's really locked into the new age, which is not only Mets fandom, but creation. I really appreciate that. And Tong, what he has done is something that I've certainly appreciated as a fan, because Buddy has been going out and dominating every single time out there. Not only has he seen an uptick this year in his velocity, where he's sitting, more mid to even getting past 95 miles per hour, which is amazing to see. He has one of the most nasty breaking balls in the game that you will see with that ridiculous drop. He has a wind-up and a release point that's awfully similar to one in Tim Lincecum. If you guys don't know Tim Lincecum, do yourself a favor and do yourself some homework on those fantastic San Francisco Giants teams in the 2000s 2000s leading into the early 2010s. But Jonah Tong, everybody, this is a man that many, including myself, would love to see at the major league level right now. And there is a possibility now with Tong being officially moved off to Syracuse, or he could get a taste of the major leagues before this season is done. But I think it's really going to be indicative on not only how he handles the Syracuse right away and makes those proper adjustments, but also the Mets' desperation and their team need for a starter like him. Because it goes without saying, guys, the Mets need length from their rotation. That has been their biggest Achilles heel, along with not being able to hit a lick with runners in scoring position this season. That too has been their 1-2 in the big bugaboos. But when looking at the rotation front, the fact that the Mets now have the longest lasting record going back to 1901 of 50 consecutive games, or if your name is not David Pearson, you have not provided length at all for this Mets team. Mets starters outside of Pearson have been averaging right around 4 innings or so over the past pretty much 2 months, and that's just inexcusable. That's not going to play up at the MLB level, and that's why it isn't surprising to see the Mets having the continued struggles on the rotation front that they've had over the past number of weeks now. But Jonah Tong now, who again is going to be getting that taste of Syracuse Mets baseball, is destined to do fantastic things, and hopefully fast for Syracuse, the way that we saw in similarity to a guy like Nolan Mlan that we're going to break down later on in today's show. He and Brandon Sproat on how now they are basically paved the way to make their Mets debuts, because there is no denying that this Tong call-up goes in direct hand with the Mets inevitably making a move there to bring up one of Brandon Sproat or Nolan Mlan. And that very well could be announced later on today on this Mets off day, so don't be surprised if you see me coming out with a breaking news video or live stream regarding one of those topics. If not, be on the lookout, as that feels like it's inevitably happening at some point this calendar week. Just a matter of exactly when, what time, and everything in between. But Jonah Tong, guys, we have been beating this drum all season long. If you have not paid attention to Jonah Tong's season, I implore you to do that right here, right now, because this guy has not only been dominating all season long, but he has the exact kind of personality and character that I really think could find himself playing and thriving and really handling the media well more than anything at the major league level. You know, there's something about Tong's innocence, as well as, you know, his charisma and honestly just his personality in general, I think is really going to bode well for this Mets team when he inevitably gets here, whether that's this season or sometime next season if he doesn't crack the team out of camp. But Jonah Tong is just one of many top prospects that are officially getting moved up there to the AA level. So let's go ahead and talk about another man who's sticking out for all the great reasons, and that is going to be Mr. Jett Williams. And I'm so happy to break down Jett Williams right now, because this is long overdue as well. Jett Williams has consistently dominated that we have seen for the Realm of Ponies this year. That's why the Realm of Ponies were on pace to be one of the best, feels like, minor league teams in history, at least for the Mets. I mean, every single Mets affiliate this year has been dominating, but specifically there, the Realm of Ponies of AA, they have not skipped a beat all year long. And Jett Williams has been right in the heart of their success. With 96 games played, he's had 99 hits, so he's averaging over a hit per game. We're looking at 10 home runs, 37 RBIs, but it's the 70 runs scored and 32 stolen bags that stick out like a sore thumb. Buddy has been absolutely lightning on the base paths, as well as obviously his ability to just find himself going from second to home on a lot of bloops, a lot of singles, whatever the case may be. A 281 average and an 867 OPS, just under 900 there. Jett Williams is now one step closer to making his major league debut, and I'll make the argument that Jett Williams is a guy that maybe, just maybe, the Mets consider either he or Carson Benj, that we're going to get into shortly, should the Mets' offensive woes continue. Because when you think about Jett Williams and his potential role with this Mets team, if he handles Syracuse smoothly as a transition, who's not to say that Jett Williams maybe could not have at least a similar impact, if not greater quality, than a Luisangel Acuna, right? Because in similarity to Acuna, Williams is not only a speed demon, as we know, one of the best base runners you'll ever find, as well as great defense, but he's a guy that can play up the middle as well, obviously, multiple infield positions, can play the outfield if you really need him to, like Luisangel Acuna, and they're both smaller stature, so there's honestly a lot of similarities between the two, but the common consensus with Jett Williams among everyone that's been evaluating him in the Mets minor leagues is that he is a Mets top offensive prospect, or at least in that category, and for good reason. So for me personally, as someone who actually had the great chance to interview Jett Williams at spring training a couple years ago in the backfields, I can tell you that he already seemed like he had a great head on his shoulders for, at that time, was, I want to say, a 19, 20-year-old when I interviewed him. And now to fast forward to present day, Jett Williams, you know, far more polished than what he was a year and a half ago, especially with all the ailments that he endured in his 2024 season, which really derailed the year for Jett. Otherwise, he probably would have been in Syracuse a year ago already. So I'm really excited to see what Jett Williams can provide now for the Syracuse Mets, and ultimately finding himself closer now to the major league level. But Jett, as fantastic as he has been with his on-base and contact ability, that's really been his stronghold. It's on-base ability, contact ability, obviously, being able to go gap to gap with those doubles, legging doubles into triples every now and then, as well as what you're seeing there, clutching up with runners in scoring position, being a great, versatile defender in the infield and the outfield. What isn't there to like about Jett Williams? And I think the only counter there is really maybe the lack of power, the size. There's concerns with guys like him because Jose Altuve is an anomaly of a player. You can't really expect many other guys to go out there in similar stature. And I know Jett's small because when I interviewed him, we were pretty much the exact same size. And I'm a short schmuck myself. So I'm telling you right now, for me to basically be level-headed with Jett in an interview was telling of just how much he's defying the odds with his stature now getting close to the major league level. It's not saying that he can't do that, but I think that there are understandably so reservations with a player like him to see how he will properly adjust to the major league level when he finally gets there. And I'm going to be rooting hard every step of the way because there's nothing that I love more than my short kings going out and balling out at the major league level. But going on from Jett Williams, everybody, now let's get on to another big hitter, one that I'm beyond infatuated with. He's currently arguably my favorite prospect in the organization, and you can make the rightful argument that he is the best prospect right now in all of the Mets minor leagues, and that is Mr. Carson Benj. Because, guys, Carson Benj did not skip a beat whatsoever this year. He initially started the year there for High A Brooklyn, and then was soon, not long after dominating for Brooklyn, getting the move to the Double A Rummel Ponies. And what Carson Benj has done in Double A has been nothing short of jaw-dropping. In 32 games, he's 8 home runs, 23 RBIs, 18 walks, 4 stolen bases. Well, mind you, had plenty more stolen bags in High A earlier this year. A 317 average and a 978 OPS. Buddy is batting almost 1,000 on the OPS that we're seeing right now, and it's all in hand with the fact that I really think that Benj is the most polished hitter that the Mets currently have in the minor leagues. And we'll see how he adjusts, obviously, or lack thereof in Syracuse, but for him to go in Double A and only get better is really impressive to me. And then you look at, okay, he's a guy that can play all over the outfield. He's a guy that dominated and was fantastic as a multi-tool athlete at OSU with Nolan Mlan. Funny enough, both Nolan Mlan and Carson Benj were two-way players. McLean was more noted in that regard than Benj between the two, from my understanding. But McLean, who was initially labeled the Cowboy Ohtani of OSU before being really transitioned into a full-time starter the past year and a half in the Mets farm, Carson Benj obviously had his pitching reps, but most noted there for his offense, and that big bat is what's carrying himself potentially to the major league level. I love big bats from the left side especially. Benj is without question the most hyped up lefty bat of an outfield prospect for the Mets since a guy like Michael Conforto, and I don't really think there's an argument otherwise. Benj not only looks polished, but especially knowing that he had all that experience at OSU, I really think is going to help him get transitioned to the major league level faster than some other guys I would say coming out of high school. You know, the guy I think of right away is Colin Houck. Not that we should compare the players at all in talent, but rather just, you know, it can be a bit of a slower role for guys that didn't even get that taste of college ball the way that Benj did. I think that's only going to bode well for someone like him as he now not only gets to Syracuse now, but what he could potentially do for great things at the MLB level. When I think of all players that can impact the Mets right now, there are very few that I think could at all impact them at the major league level from an offensive standpoint, but Benj, I truly believe, is an exception. So even if Carson is not considered before the end of the season, do not be shocked if Carson Benj finds himself cracking this Mets roster as their opening day center fielder to begin the 2026 season. There is great belief that that can happen. Cedric Mullins is a rental contract, as we know. The Mets don't really have any clear tie downs there in center field. As of now, they have a glaring hole there for the 2026 season, paving the way for a guy like Carson Benj, who I think would fit in nicely with guys like Juan Soto to his right and Brandon Nimmo to his left. Just what do we have to do with Brandon Nimmo? Tell him to stop striking out at a rate of roughly 50% over the past couple weeks. So it'd be a great start. But that's me getting on my tangent that you guys can check out from our post-game coverage and not here as we're breaking down prospect coverage. Because Carson Benj was not just one of the only big bats that was moved up to the AAA level. Because there is a bigger bat that you could argue in the sense of power especially. And this bat has led all of AA that we have seen in home runs as he just smashed his 24th of the year, as a matter of fact, just the past day or so, everybody. Let me enlighten you on one of the more slept-on prospects this year because he had a very slow start to the year and then really picked it up over the past month and a half. That is going to be, yes, Ryan Clifford. Ryan Clifford is the last man standing between himself and Drew Gilbert in that key trade with the Astros for Justin Verlander back in the 2023 MLB trade deadline. When that happened, the Mets acquired two prospects, one being Drew Gilbert, who was the more heralded prospect between the two, but there was rightful hype with Clifford because even though that he was not a high draft pick, Buddy was just raking right away in the minor leagues for the Astros. And since arriving with the Mets, he, along with Jesus Baez, who sadly is no longer in the Mets organization, he was parted with for Ryan Helsley in that rental deal, and now Baez, I'm sure, will do great things over the coming years for the St. Louis Cardinals and their org. But outside of Baez, Clifford has been the hardest hitter in the Mets minor leagues. And as you guys can see from the stat line down below, he's a guy that I think could not only play up at the major league level, but you're going to get a lot of swing and miss. He gives me a profile that is eerily similar to a degree of a guy like a Kyle Schwarber, is what I see in similarity to Ryan Clifford. I think he's going to bode best as a DH option at the major league level. He's been utilized in the corner outfield. He's been utilized at first base, but he's not an overly proficient defender. And knowing how the roster construction is for this Mets team, I just think that Clifford is going to find himself more in that first base DH role than anything else. And 105 games this year for the Rumble Ponies, Clifford, 89 hits, 24 home runs, 75 RBIs, 56 runs scored, 4 stolen bags for a 243 average and just under 850 OPS. Clifford now, getting to see him at the AAA level, I think is going to be exciting because while he's not necessarily as polished as a Jett Williams or a Carson Benj, the raw power implementation with someone like him is as good as any in the organization right now. He's a guy that can absolutely be a difference maker with one swing of the bat, which you can't say about necessarily everybody in the farm when we evaluate their top offensive prospects. There's a few that fall in that category, but I think Ryan Clifford is headlining said discussion in that regard. Ryan Clifford, just one of many Mets top prospects, getting that call, rightfully so, there to AAA Syracuse. And I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, everybody, on Ryan Clifford joining guys like Carson Benj, Jett Williams, and Jonah Tong, all officially moving up to Syracuse. Because now that we talked about all the guys that are moving up to Syracuse and being promoted, let's talk about the inevitable move that's soon to follow along with. That is the call-up of one of, if not both of, Brandon Sproat and Nolan Mlan. And as we begin this discussion, let's first talk about a guy that has obviously been standing out all season long, and that has been Nolan Mlan. Mr. Consistent is what I love to call Nolan, and for good reason, everybody. As you guys can see here with Mlan, Buddy has just been fantastic. I mean, just more of the same from Mlan all year long. And his latest outing that he just provided for this, for the for the Syracuse Mets over the past day or so, he was cruising yet again, going 4 to 5 strong innings there. We saw he threw just around 75 pitchers or so, which makes more sense, especially if you're getting Mlan set for a call-up, where the Mets could have him slotted in their rotation as soon as later on this week, say, I don't know, this Friday, I think would make a lot of sense, where you can utilize him as your starter or in a piggyback situation with one of Frankie Montas or Clay Holmes. That feels like the route that's inevitably happening that I've been calling out for quite a while now. So again, don't say that I told you so when David Stearns inevitably says that that's the route we're going down. But when it happens, I'm telling you so, guys, and this is exactly why. Mlan in 87.1 innings, and mind you, he started the year in Double-A, so he has not been in Syracuse all year, but the numbers you see down below are solely what he's done for Syracuse Mets in Triple-A. 87.1 innings, 16 starts, 58 hits, 38 walks, 27 earned runs allowed, 97 strikeouts, and a 2.78 ERA. Go ahead and try to find me a starter that's been this consistent for this long period of time in Syracuse. You really can't find one. With the exception of what Christian Scott did in his limited sample size when he was dominating, cruising fast in the Mets minor leagues as another high riser as well, who is still coming back from his reconstructed Tommy John surgery after having some up and down starts with the Mets in the 2024 year. Scott is another very slept-on pitcher that I don't think Mets fans are really taking into account just how much upside he has heading into the 2026 season, but we'll talk more about Scott when it is warranted of that discussion. In the meantime, Mlan, Mr. Consistent, as I said a second ago, and I'll say it again, is a guy that we have been wanting to see at the major league level, and there's been rumblings of Mlan to be considered at the major league level going back a month and a half, 2 months ago, when there was rightful reason to do so, instead of these nonsensical spot starts of guys that are just only going to help the Mets to a losing record of 5-11 when they've utilized games in that fashion this year. Mlan, yes, there is one level of concern with him. It's not just necessarily how he does with his swing and miss at the major league level, as it is when it comes to length. The Mets desperately need a length in their rotation right now, but Mlan is assumed to probably have right around 40 or so innings left in the tank to work with what the Mets would probably feel comfortable given what his ramp up has been. Obviously, that can change depending on McLean's inevitable call-up, as well as just how much of a positive impact or lack thereof he has for the club. But to say that Nolan McLean is ready for the major leagues, I think we could all agree is an understatement at this point in time. The sweeper is disgusting. The fastball is strong. He has a multi-tool pitch mix that really looks like it's going to play up at the major league level. And yes, I understand that McLean is not necessarily lighting the world on fire when you look at certain metrics, but he's a guy that's going out and putting the results out there on an every fourth or fifth day basis. And that is something that the Mets are in such dire need of that we would rather spend $17 million a year on a Nolan McLean that's unproven than a Frankie Montas who looks like he's closer to being designated for assignment than actually being a positive impact for this Mets team. I say that loosely because the idea of David Stearns parting ways with his big signing this past offseason for the rotation of a new addition, it's hard to fathom, but at the same time, let's see if David Stearns does roll up the sleeves a little bit and makes more rash decisions versus him being ultra conservative for the pretty much majority of the season up until this point. Probably getting ahead of myself, I realize that, but just some food for thought. And McLean, as brilliant as he has been at the AAA level, it's not necessarily a given that he is for certain the guy to get the call first should the Mets ponder between himself there and one other top prospect, because the other top prospect has been laying the lamp up, rightfully so, over the past month or so, and that is Brandon Sproat. Guys, Brandon Sproat's finally here, and it's so awesome to say that because Sproat looked like he had the yips when he initially got called up to the AAA level after, mind you, starting the minor leagues last year in single A. So he, in a one calendar season, went from single A all the way to AAA in 2024. The problem is Sproat dominated in all the previous minor leagues because he had the velocity of sitting 99, 100, 102 on the gun. Just disgustingly good. A lot to love about him. Then he gets that taste of AAA level. Can't handle that. Not really sure how to handle that early adversity. And we saw him struggle in real time with it towards the end of last season, as well as the first, I'd say, month and a half, 2 months of AAA this year. He had a couple solid outings in AAA, but they were pretty much few and far in between. What we have seen since Brandon Sproat got a little taste of El Troll, a.k.a. Francisco Alvarez, when Alvarez was sent down, over this past month or so that we saw to really refine his game. When that happened, Alvarez not only caught a starter or two for Sproat, but it appears that he really helped instill confidence in him at the same time because Sproat has looked more comfortable since then than ever. He's really not holding back with the velocity. Again, he's topping out 99, 100 plus on the gun. He's getting more bite in his off-speed and breaking pitches versus what was previously the case, which wasn't all that great. His fastball shape has been definitely suspect, but Sproat not going as much with the heavy fastball usage as we've seen him make proper adjustments with the sink, among others, has really boded him well now to have him ready for the major league level. That velocity is certainly going to play, and unlike Blade Tidwell, I do think that we have a bit more of a polished product here, which is why Tidwell is now a part of the San Francisco Giants organization, along with Jose Butto and Drew Gilbert. Brandon Sproat, guys, a player that many believe is still the Mets' top prospect in the farm right now. You know we have an embarrassment of riches when you can make that great debate between himself there as well as other guys. And I actually sincerely apologize, everybody. I just realized I have the stat line down below inaccurate. So please ignore the stats down below. Those are the same as Nolan McLan. I meant to put the stats there for Brandon Sproat, but that's okay. I'll just relay them to you right here, right now, as a matter of fact, because we're just going to go ahead on his minor league profile. And as you guys can see right now, a 4.1 ERA, but the key context is going back to the start of July, he's at an ERA right around 0.67 or so, just around 1. It's looked really, really good, and that's over 101 innings. He's allowed 82 hits, 46 earned runs, 8 home runs allowed, 11 hit by pitches, 45 walks, 86 strikeouts for a 1.26 whip. Again, not the sexiest numbers, but understanding the context of Sproat going back to what we've seen over the past, I would say, a month and a half especially, is where the Mets have really been getting the best out of him at the AAA level. So between Sproat and McLean, and again, guys, please ignore the following stats down below on the graphic. That's inaccurate. That's the same as Nolan McLan. I am beyond pumped up to see these guys at the major league level. Now, David Stearns, it's your call. When are you going to go ahead and do it? Is it going to be later on today on this Mets off day at the time of this video dropping? Is it going to be sometime in the next coming days throughout the week? We'll be the judge, obviously, but, as I've been saying for a while, and I'll bring this back to the main slide here to make my final point here in our conversation, where's the bar for David Stearns when it comes to actually making either rash or maybe decisions he otherwise didn't initially want to make? Because what we're watching right before our very eyes is when the Mets do inevitably call up guys like Nolan McLan and Brandon Sproat, yes, it'll have to do with performance, but let's also be realists here. It goes in direct hand with the fact that the Mets lack of production in their rotation. We have a quote verbatim from from David Stearns in the first half of the season in pregame pressers. When he does those usual pressers, he stated the following, that it's not in the best interest of the club, obviously, to call up a prospect based on team need. That in itself doesn't feel right, and it doesn't do justice for the player, and adds a bit more pressure on their shoulders, especially if they get called up while the team is obviously reeling the way that they are right now, losing 11 of their past 12 games. But you also need to consider the kids because they're performing so well at the AAA level, and you've been performing so bad at the Major League level, that being this rotation for the most part, that something needs to be had there. So when you see McLean and or Sproat get the call, no, that's not just because of their production, but it has a lot to do with the Mets' actual team need and level of desperation. That's what happens, everybody, when the Mets go from being 21 games above 500 to now finding themselves just 8 games above 500 in that category, if not 7, and are currently on a 7-game losing streak. They're 3 games behind the Padres. They're 4.5 behind the Cubs, and they are 5.5 at least behind the Phillies there for first in the NL East. The Mets are closer to being on the outside looking in of a playoff spot than they are actually winning the division at this point in time, as frustrating as that is to say. So all the more reason as to why the Mets need to go out and make some key rash decisions, and fast, because there is not much time to waste. Time is of the essence here, and the Mets are free falling in the snap of a finger. Imagine losing roughly 6 games in the standings in a week span, yet that is exactly what the Mets have sadly found themselves doing after now dropping 11 of their past 12 games. Again, if you want to know my analysis and initial raw reaction, thoughts, and frustration regarding the Mets' continued woes, I promise I have everything and then some that you need to know from our past night's post-game show, as well as our previous days of post-game coverage. We cover the Mets after every single ball game, win, lose, or draw, and the 162 throughout the regular season, as well as postseason play. We cover everything regarding the ball club that happens in between. And the only reason why I didn't drop this video late night, this past night when the news initially came out, is because I truthfully just wanted the post-game show to marinate a little bit, because if there's one downside to posting multiple forms of content the same day, sometimes the algorithm will favor certain things over others, or you guys may get notified about the new video that dropped, but maybe you didn't get that notification of the stream prior, and maybe you didn't even realize that I went live for it. So make sure to check out that coverage in case you guys haven't already. Thank you so much for hitting that like and subscribe on your way out. Helping us get to 35,000 subscribers for our next short-term goal on the platform, as we're giving away a Mets jersey to one lucky subscriber once we hit said accolade, like we do every new 1,000 subscriber milestone that we hit on the platform. We've already given away 2 Juan Soto jerseys, 1 Brandon Nimmo jersey, and 1 other Mets jersey that I'll be giving away actually today at the time of this video dropping to our latest giveaway winner from the past couple days there. We did the giveaway right around on Thursday or Friday, whenever it was that the Mets had their off day. I think it was Thursday. So we're going to be doing that giveaway here shortly. Be on the lookout for all the quick promos, new giveaways, and some very exciting news I'm going to be unraveling each and every one of you on the platform as soon as potentially this week, barring changes. So be on the lookout, guys. A lot of things cooking in Mets land. While the Mets have been absolutely hot for the worst way possible, because they have been a steaming pile of you-know-what right now, things have been cooking as well on the platform for a lot of Mets content to keep you guys covered on a daily basis. Thank you guys again for the support and all of your thoughts in the comments down below. This is your guy, Tyler Ward, signing out. One final thing at the buzzer. Check me out in the Bleacher Report app every single day, guys, for daily recap videos on the Mets wins or losses there. Just go to the Bleacher Report app, go to Mets, scroll. You will see thumbnails that are eerily similar to mine because those are mine. Click on that video, watch the quick ad because they're going to run an ad right away for you, and then you can watch me in a 2 to 3 minute span summarize and not be as, explicit in my words, and to be a bit more professional there in the BR app to tell you guys and recap the past game that was. And in this case for the Mets, sadly, it was dropping this one 7-6, but make sure to check out all the other recaps I've done there in the BR app, and we'll continue to do so. All right, I'm out of here, guys. Let's go Mets. As always, no matter what, I'll repeat it once more. Let's go Mets. Peace out, folks.